Adam Rivers leaned back in his sleek, glass-walled office, the city skyline a testament to his success. His life was an empire built on ruthless ambition, a world where relationships were sacrificed for power. Now, on the brink of marrying Victoria Lawrence, a Hollywood starlet, he was ready to solidify his legacy. The wedding was set to be a lavish spectacle, the event of the year, a final, public declaration that Adam Rivers had it all. As he reviewed the guest list, a smirk spread across his lips. The name Naomi Brooks stood out like a ghost from a past life. She had been his wife once, before his company, before his empire. She had left him with a final, cutting remark about his inability to love anything but ambition. Adam had barely given her a second thought, but now, the idea of her witnessing his perfect life, his perfect bride, was too satisfying to ignore. He called his assistant. "Send an invitation to Naomi Brooks," he said smoothly. "Make sure it reaches her personally. Let's see if she's curious enough to show up." Naomi stood in her small, sunlit studio, the scent of fresh paint and turpentine filling the air. Her life was a world away from the one she had once shared with Adam, but it was full. She had 3 beautiful sons, Caleb, Jaden, and Eli, who were her entire world. Raising them alone had not been easy, but she had never regretted her decision to leave. When the thick, cream-colored invitation arrived, she felt a twist in her stomach. "Adam Rivers and Victoria Lawrence cordially invite you to celebrate their union." A part of her wanted to toss it away, to forget it ever existed, but her sons had started asking about their father. Maybe it was time for Adam to see what he had left behind. Taking a deep breath, she folded the invitation. She would go, not for him, but for them. The day of the wedding was a spectacle of opulence. The estate, a sprawling mansion overlooking the Pacific, was a vision of wealth. Adam stood at the entrance, exuding confidence in a tailored tuxedo. His bride, Victoria, was a vision of perfection, her presence radiating elegance and status. Everything was exactly as he had planned. He told himself he didn't care if Naomi showed up, yet a dark part of him was waiting. Then, the doors to the grand hall opened. A hush fell over the crowd as Naomi walked in, quiet and confident. She wasn't here to beg or to gawk. She had brought 3 young boys, all in matching suits, their hands gripping hers. The murmur that spread through the guests was immediate. Whispers and glances flickered between the boys and Adam. The resemblance was unmistakable. Victoria, standing beside him, tensed. Her perfectly composed expression hardened at the edges. The realization hit Adam as a sledgehammer. The boys, Caleb, Jaden, and Eli, were his sons. He had sons, and he had never known. For the first time in years, Adam felt something raw and unsettling. Naomi met his gaze from across the hall. "I didn't come here for you, Adam," she said, her voice calm and steady. "I came because they deserve to know who their father is." A cold, sharp silence followed. Victoria's fingers curled tightly around Adam's arm. Her mask of composure was cracking. "What is this, Adam?" she hissed, her voice low and strained. He had no answer. The air in the grand hall grew thick with tension as murmurs swelled. Adam's jaw tightened, his mind racing. He had expected Naomi to appear defeated, envious. Instead, she stood there, her gaze unwavering, and her presence alone had unraveled everything he had built. With a sharp intake of breath, Victoria turned and strode toward the doors. The train of her wedding gown swept behind her as she disappeared into the hall. She didn't need to say the words, the message was clear. The wedding was over. Adam stood frozen, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Naomi remained for a moment longer, then turned to her sons. "Let's go," she said simply. As she began to walk away, something inside Adam cracked. He had spent his life convincing himself he had no regrets. But as he watched Naomi and his sons walking away from him, from everything he had built, a terrible realization settled over him. For the first time in his life, Adam Rivers was losing something he couldn't replace. Adam paced his penthouse, the city a vast sea of lights beneath him. The headlines had already begun to circulate. Billionaire CEO's wedding ruined by secret family. Photos of Naomi and the 3 boys had spread across the internet at lightning speed. He ignored his incessantly buzzing phone, the calls from investors and PR advisors. He ignored everything but the thought looping in his head. She had come, she had brought them, and he had let them walk away. He had spent his life believing that success was a solitary pursuit, that love was a distraction. He had told himself that Naomi was weak for not enduring his ambition. Now, he saw the truth. She had not been weak. She had chosen to raise their children alone rather than be diminished by his world. He had missed everything: their first steps, their first words, every scraped knee and birthday. He couldn't get that time back. His hand curled into a fist. No, this wasn't over. He had spent his life making things happen. He was not a man who let opportunities slip through his fingers. He scrolled through his contacts until he found the one he hadn't used in years. Naomi Brooks. His thumb hovered over the call button. He didn't deserve for her to listen, but that didn't matter. He had to try. He hit call. The phone rang twice before going to voicemail. He wasn't a man who left messages, but tonight, he wasn't the man he had always been. "Naomi," he said, his voice steady, but with an edge of vulnerability. "I need to see them. Tell me where." Adam sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel as he watched the scene unfold at a park. Naomi sat on a bench, her 3 sons scattered across the playground. Caleb, the boldest, climbed the jungle gym. Jaden, more cautious, kicked a soccer ball. Eli, the quietest, sat with a sketchbook on his lap. He pushed open the car door, his polished shoes feeling out of place on the warm pavement. This was not a negotiation to be won. This was something far more delicate. Naomi noticed him first, but she didn't rise. She simply watched as he approached. He stopped a few feet away, his gaze shifting to the boys. Caleb was the first to spot him. He paused at the top of the jungle gym. "You're the guy from the wedding," he said bluntly. Adam nodded. "I am." Jaden joined his brother, his expression guarded. "Why are you here?" Adam hesitated, then admitted, "Because I should have been here sooner." Eli, still seated on the bench, finally spoke. His voice was soft, but the question was direct. "Are you staying?" The question cut deeper than any he had ever faced. It was about permanence, about consistency. Adam met his gaze. "I want to," he said, the words a beginning. The boys didn't walk away. For now, that was enough. The next few weeks were a blur of controlled chaos. Adam's life, once an unshakable pillar of structure and dominance, now revolved around 3 small boys who did not yet trust him. He attended Jaden's soccer games, sat on the sidelines as Caleb climbed trees, and watched Eli create worlds with his pencil. He was an outsider, a name they had heard but never spoken, a stranger who shared their blood, but nothing else. Naomi did not push them to accept him, nor did she shield them from the disappointment that could come if he failed. She simply watched, letting him figure it out on his own. The first breakthrough came one evening when Naomi had to work late, leaving Adam with the boys for the first time. It was a blur of basketball in the driveway, trick shots with a soccer ball, and Eli quietly sketching beside him on the porch. When Naomi returned, the boys were sprawled across the couch, exhausted. Adam sat in the armchair, feeling something he couldn't quite define. It wasn't victory, it was something softer, something deeper. "They didn't chase you out," she remarked, a hint of amusement in her tone. "Not yet," he replied. The days blurred into weeks, and Adam's life took a different shape. He still held power, but now there was something else woven into his daily existence. His mornings no longer started with urgent emails. They began with Jaden kicking a soccer ball against his car tires, or Caleb daring him to a game of basketball. He learned their habits, their quirks, the small details that made them who they were. He had expected their distrust, had braced himself for rejection. But what surprised him most was the slow, inevitable shift in his own perception of what truly mattered. One evening, after the boys had fallen asleep, Adam found himself alone with Naomi in her kitchen. The air was still, heavy with unspoken meaning. "You didn't have to stay this long," she said without looking at him. "I didn't expect to either," he admitted. She turned to face him, her eyes searching his. And yet you did. I don't want to go back to how things were, he said quietly. What does that mean, Adam? It means I'm stepping back from the company. I've delegated. I've spent my whole life chasing something I thought was the most important thing in the world. And then I realized I'd already lost the one thing that actually mattered. Naomi stared at him, searching for any sign of a strategic move. Why now? She asked finally. Because I thought I had everything, he admitted. And then you walked into that wedding with them, and I realized how much I had lost. I missed their whole lives, Naomi. I missed their first steps, their first words, and I can't get that time back. But I can be here now, if you let me. You don't get to just decide that, she whispered. You don't get to show up and expect everything to fall into place. I know, he said. That's why I'm not asking you to believe me right now. I'm just asking you to let me prove it. The silence stretched between them, heavy with years of hurt and missed chances. Then, slowly, Naomi nodded. You have a lot to prove, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I know, Adam replied, and I will. The road ahead would not be easy. Trust would not be rebuilt overnight, and the past could not be erased. But for the first time in his life, Adam Rivers was willing to fight for something more than just success. And this time, he wouldn't let it slip away.